And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Igor Galibov, master astral traveler who's had extensive contact with extraterrestrials. Igor, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me here.
How did you start becoming an astral traveler in the first place?
Well, I did not know what astral traveling was. I had a very sharp awakening in about 2004. And anything that I kind of looked at or perceived into, I noticed myself coming out of my body instantaneously and taking my space there. So as I started to have these experiences, I wasn't really aware of what's taking place because I was able to come out of my body as I'm doing things and perceive what's there. And then same thing at nighttime, I was able to kind of come out of my body and see what's going on in the dream state, as well as to see my body. So there are different terms and definitions for all this stuff, but energetically, what's really taking place, or what energy body are you utilizing in order to perceive or project yourself into a different dimension? So when I started to do that, it was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm like walking outside of my house and I'm still in bed. For me, it was like strange and weird. Next thing you know, okay, let's do this again. Let me do it consciously now. It was, first of all, it was unconscious. It was just happening. As I started to kind of try to do it, it wasn't working. But when I relaxed into it, I'm like, again, appearing somewhere in a tunnel or in a cave or on a street. And all of a sudden, I'm perceiving things that are not physical, maybe entities or something walking by or a different being, or a different energies. And it was very confusing at first. So I started to kind of play with that. And I started to explore because it was so powerful, so beautiful, but yet very scary because it was the unknown. You know, sometimes you come back and your whole body's sweating. So I started to play with these different experiences and I started to venture out into different universes, different solar systems. I started to play going into different like mountain peaks and just sitting on them and observing stuff. And a lot of that stuff really triggered my whole system, because I'm very aware of my body and what's happening to the physical body. I started to notice what's taking place in the astral body was also triggering my nervous system. So throughout this experience, I started to say, okay, I want to go, let's say, to a different solar system or the moon. I would project myself into the moon, walk around the moon, see that's completely something different than what we see here. Go into the center of the planets, see what's going on there, because each planet has a gravitational pull. What is sustained out of? What's going on in there energetically? As I started to do that, I started to get all of a sudden pulled into different spaceships. I'll just wake up in spaceships. And those spaceships were like these silhouette beings that were so conscious of this other dimension and their physical reality that it was no separation for them. They were like operating in both of these dimensions simultaneously. I started to venture out and I started to work with different beings. And one of the beings, these blue silhouette beings, they started to teach me about the chakra systems in the field, what and how the field operates. For me, that became so interesting that every night I wanted to go and learn this. I wanted to know what's going on, how to operate in these dimensions. So that's how my journey began. And I spent about 10 years altogether exploring different dimensions and learning from different civilizations. These different civilizations want us to learn this because this is how we connect to them. Because it helps us evolution on Earth to grow, as well as to connect with the brothers and sisters of the galactic family, because they cannot communicate with us unless we are really aware of our own selves and really can step into that without fear.
You mentioned that it was scary for you sometimes, and many people report that the first time they get out of their body, it's frightening for them and they immediately go back. How did you overcome the fear?
So I tried different things. One of the fears is very interesting, because the fear is what pulls you back into your body. It's like your soul says, "Oh, you're not ready? Okay, let's go back." And the fear is the fear of loss, fear of death, fear of not coming back to the body. All of these bring us back because it all connects back to the death. It's like you feel like you're dying. It's something that is unusual. It's a sensation. It's a feeling, right? Because the astral body still operates in duality. That's the last layer of duality. So we do still have positive and negative in that aspect. But that space can be controlled only through your heart space. That is when you're in your power, fully solidified in your power. Let's understand the astral body, like for example, for instance. We have energy bodies, they're like field around us. And the astral body is what unites four energy bodies: your physical, your emotional, mental, etheric, and then it all becomes the astral. They're all within it. So when we really think that we're coming out of our body and going somewhere, we're actually not coming out of our field. We're in our field and bringing different dimensions into our field. So you're, let's say, an electron. You're actually coming out of the core and in the field floating. And wherever you think of, or wherever you can choose the mind to direct into, you're bringing that there. So we're not actually going to a different solar system. We're bringing the solar systems to our field.
So you can't get stuck out there, or nobody can steal your body from you while you're out.
Exactly, because it is the fear based of the personality that has this. If the persona doesn't have that fear, then you're like a master of your field. You can explore so many different dimensions, and the dimensions that you really actually explore are matching vibrationally to you.
So are you saying that when you bring something to your field, you brought those spaceships into your field?
Correct. It seems that we're going there. From their perspective, they are bringing us to them.
Interesting.
But from our perspective, we feel like we're going there, but in reality, we're bringing them to us as well.
You said you were on the moon. And
Yeah.
some of my guests will talk about there are alien bases there and ETs and all kinds of stuff. Did you see any of that?
Yes. So there are structures, there are beings on the moon. There are beings on other planets as well. On Saturn, on Jupiter, there are existing civilizations that vibrate and exist in those dimensions. Venus also. So every single orb that is out there has some sort of living species existing. It's just us matching the vibration in order to see them. So when we go out to them, that is nothing to be afraid of, because it is a unification of your own aspects. It's like visiting the oversoul through all these dimensions. So there is a learning curve in that and an expansion of consciousness in all of that. I used to go out to these beings and they would take me every night. And we would sit, literally, like I would see myself sitting with them, and they would show me things through pictures, like images, right? And these images would show me how the energy flows from one energy field to another and what really directs it. And I would have these scary moments at first, but then I was like, wait a minute, this is so powerful. This is so beautiful. I'm expanding my consciousness and awareness. I'm bringing that wisdom into this reality, and I'm going to utilize this wisdom to create the reality that I want.
Have you ever visited the Akashic records or the halls of a mentee?
Yes. So Akashic records. I do trips to Egypt, and I was taken to the Hall of Amentes, right? This whole of Amentis is actually part of the astral plane because all of Egypt was built based on the wisdom from the astral perception, not the 3D dimension. We cannot really understand what Egypt is about because we're just looking around and we're walking, seeing how beautiful it is. But in reality, it is every temple is a portal to a different constellation. So the halls of Amentes are existence in the astral plane where people, when they walk by and they will see golden letters or golden codes flowing through, those golden codes are actually wisdom that is embodied in the astral plane that each individual has access to. We are utilizing our physical mind so much, but when you get into the astral plane, it is the wisdom that is within it. So within that wisdom is the wisdom of the universe itself. And when you walk through these parts of the halls of Amentes, people sometimes want to remember the wisdom that they got. But if you relax into it, that wisdom will come to you when the time is needed for you to utilize it. It is already part of your field. So it's the remembrance part that we have to get into in order to understand what's really taking place through the halls of Amentes. And the halls of Amentes have wisdom that goes beyond the 88 constellations. It is so powerful. It is so beautiful. And a lot of times the mind gets involved and it wants to harness it. But you cannot harness it. It's like trusting it and it will connect to that wisdom whenever it needs to. The Akashic records, are the experiences and contracts in there. There's so much information there that why you came into this planet, let's say, for instance. You have blueprints there. You have information there that can serve you. But these Akashic records they call the Akash, which is called ether. They're in the etheric body, they're in the field. So it's about you grasping or being able to connect to that based on your vibration. Does that make sense? And all of that could be done through the space of intention.
Some of my near-death experience guests enter a quantum field where they know everything. Unfortunately, when they come back, they can't bring all that knowledge back with them. Is this field the same thing that you're talking about?
Correct. Is the ether. See, ether cannot be measured. It's not electric or magnetic. It is the field. In that field, when we go there, is just the existence, the blueprint of existence itself. And we cannot really bring it here is because the mind, the physiological mind, cannot operate in that space. It's made to kind of surrender. So once we surrender, that wisdom is utilized by these people through the experience of their everyday reality. So it's like surrendering to that wisdom completely. And you know how sometimes people have sleep paralysis when they're sleeping and they go out of their body and they cannot move.
Mm-hmm.
These parts of us that is frozen, a lot of times people say, how do I come back? How do I come out of that space? And that's where they actually get to face their fear. And the only way you come back is to come through the center of your heart. To remember to come back into the center of your heart, because in the heart space, you are the 0 point of the astral body of your field. And in the 0 point, nothing can really attack you or destroy you because you're in the part of the God particle, you can say. You're in that center space where everything begins and everything ends.
Earlier, you mentioned that you saw blue ETs. Which
Yeah.
ones were those, and what did they teach you?
So back then, this is like 2005, 6, I did not know the names of ETs, but there were these blue, tall silhouette beings. There were several species that I worked with. There were several species that actually took me up into the ships. The blue ones that I worked with were the Palladian ones. They are the ones who taught me the structure of the chakra systems in the energy bodies, not the 7 chakra systems that we're talking about here. We're referring to like the emotional body has 16 chakra systems. The mental body has like over 26 chakra systems. And they would start showing me how these vortices operate with other vortices within in order to receive these dimensional experiences into the body. And started to see what was my contracts and my agreements and how I experienced my past lives and how they can benefit me in this lifetime. It's like if you go out there and you have this experience, it has to benefit you somehow in this dimension. So the whole purpose for you to have that experience is to improve this current lifestyle or life existence on its own, is because you're raising in vibration, expansion of your consciousness. So the beings would work with, they would teach me this. Then there were beings that were actually utilizing my DNA for their own growth. And I started to see that I was actually utilized to create different children. And throughout the time, I noticed that I had 27 different kids. I started to say, wait a minute, these are my kids. These are different ET species that are my kids. Yeah. So I started to focus on that, and I wanted to know what's going on. Why am I agreeing to this? Because it would be painful. In some mornings, I would wake up and I would have pain. I was like, why do I have pain? My pain in my testicles or pain in my body? It was really uncomfortable. I started to see that unconsciously, I made agreements to support other dimensional beings. They would retract demon from me in order to create other children in other dimensions in order to continue to have their DNA existing. I was like, okay, whoa, this is really crazy. Let's go into these contracts. Why am I doing this? And this is all in the Akash. So we go into that space and we say, okay, what's happening? Let me see the agreement. You cannot come to these agreements with anger. You have to come with heart because you agreed upon it somewhere, somehow. And when you come from that space, that's when they really open up to you and show you, this is what it's about. Do you want to end this agreement? Because the astral plane is a completely different existence than it is the physical plane, but yet it still has some sort of laws that it operates under, but they're not logical like they are here.
Have you met any of these children? And if so, what were your interactions with them like?
Yes, I did. So speaking of these children, my oldest daughter has a twin, and she would come and visit. But she looked different. She looked the same, but with bigger eyes. And she's always in a spaceship, and she's living on that spaceship. And she would come and visit. So I raised my kids open to this stuff because I would meditate with them. I would teach them how to astral travel. I would do hypnosis and get them out of their body to take them to different civilizations. And I started to ask my oldest daughter, I said, did you ever meet another part of you? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, there's this part that looks just like you, but she's an ET. And she just stops and looks at me. She's like, yeah, she's sitting in a spaceship. And I see her always looking at me through the window of the spaceship. I said, can you draw her? So she drew her because she loved to draw. So she drew her. She looked very similar to her, but with bigger eyes. I said, what is she doing? She's like, well, she helps me when I need to. I was like, okay, I've seen her several times. I've seen her several times going to visit her. So there was a time when the mother of the children, she was pregnant the third time. And I wake up and we're on a spaceship. We're on a spaceship laying on these silver beds. I'm on it, the mother of the kids, and the two of the kids are also on these metal beds. And I'm looking at them, and they're this huge bubble, a violet bubble. And these ETs are injecting a violet energy into the bubble, and the whole bubble is becoming violet. And when I woke up, I was so upset that they are taking my kids and my family into that space, but without my permission. Like one thing, they take me, but they took my family. And I was really upset. And I go to grab the door and they move the door. And they're telepathically telling me, relax, this is actually beneficial. Again, I'm like, no, I was so in my mental. I try to grab the door and it moves to the other direction. Literally, they're moving dimensions because I know if I open the door, there's a whole other part of the spaceship. Who's really in charge and who gave this type of permission? So I wanted to really know what's going on. And all of a sudden, I'm back in my body. And I open my eyes in the physical already. I open my eyes and I see everything violet in front of me. I could not even see beyond that. I couldn't see the ceiling. I couldn't see my room because it was so deeply infused. I was like, okay, I need to see if my family remembers this. So I go to my kids and I ask them, hey guys, do you remember what happened last night? They're like, no, not really. No, just another night. Okay. I come out of my house and I go to this uh, a bookstore, and it was a bookstore. It was a yoga studio next to it, and I walk into that yoga studio first, and there was this little yogi guy there, and all of a sudden he's just staring at me, and I stare at him, and he's like, he knows me, I know him, and he looks at me, and I can see that he sees this whole violet energy around me. And telepathically, I'm like, yeah, you are looking at this correctly. We telepathically communicated right away. Like we knew each other. It was like a remembrance. We were in a different dimension, completely communicating telepathically. And he noticed that I was in that violet energy all around me. I was like, okay, this is very interesting. What's taking place? I wanted to go back. So I went back to the spaceship. And they told me that they were injecting the whole family with this violet color because my third child is coming into this earth as an indigo child who needs the family to be vibrating on that level. And that made so much sense that they were preparing us energetically for that soul to come through. So there's plenty of experiences like that I can share, but these contracts and agreements, we really have to be aware. If they are hurting your body, I suggest that we come to a 0 point from that and release these agreements, because it's very important for us to collect our prana, our life force in our body, and do these experiences without the harm. And through these types of experiences, I started to work with people, bringing them back and bringing their aspects back, how to basically realign, how to end these agreements and contracts, and to really align themselves with their true soul. Because when we're in our full potential alignment and we anchor ourselves truly, we can freely kind of project ourselves or astral travel into different dimensions willingly. This is when we're going to be able to freely meet the extraterrestrials with us sitting side by side, because we're now equally as powerful. And that is where the whole civilization is going. It's like, okay, how do we connect with these beings, right? We want to sit with them, not only just through our mental telepathy or our astral body or our dream state, but also physically.
What about the abduction phenomena and some of the people who claim to have been abducted? They have a lot of fear with that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I had that fear as well. It's really that's something that you're not in control of, and you're going through this space where you're kind of feeling this stuff, but you cannot do nothing. You're paralyzed. Those parts, you have to understand that right away is a time for you to come back to your heart. You have to really program yourself to be in your heart. Only then these abductions and these experiences can be nullified. If we are afraid, they will continuously do that because it's manipulation through that space. There are different levels of extraterrestrials. There are benevolent ones. There are the ones that are trying to survive. There are those that need your DNA in order to continue their existence of their species. And somehow we agree to this. And we agree to this because on a soul level, we somehow resonate to them. So in order to end these agreements and to kind of own yourself and your power, you have to project through your heart space. It will not happen through fighting or pushing because energetically you're giving more of yourself to them. The energy of the astral body or the astral space does not operate by the laws of 3D reality. If you are thinking about it, you're feeding it. If you're afraid of it, you're feeding it. But if you come into your heart space, you're bringing everything back to you. And from there, that's when you can really, truly transform that.
Are you saying that if we've made agreements via soul contracts pre-birth, we can now change them if we want to?
Correct. Yeah. 100%. That's where our free will comes in. Our free will comes in when we have awareness. And this abduction and manipulation of stuff has already come to an end on a bigger scale, where compared it was much bigger. Because we are not developed in our awareness, and you can see the planet is developing in its awareness like dramatically in the past 5 years, especially we see what took place since 2020. Awareness is where we master ourselves. Awareness is what gives us power. And because when we're not aware, other things take advantage of us, or other dimensions. And for me, it was one of the main things is like, how do I bring all aspects of myself back where I get to control myself and not be manipulated by other dimensions, but be truly in alignment with myself? Because we have to do soul clearings. Not just like we do clearings and alignments and healings on the physical body, we also have to do those things on the higher space. We also have to do those things on our soul level, because the soul has experiences many dimensions. So through that space, we also have to know how to come back to our center.
How does someone discover what their soul contract is?
So by going into the akashic records, which we call, or the astral plane, which is the ether. And from there, we can actually identify these agreements and soul on the soul level, is to ask to be seen this. I mean, this is something that we can do in a workshop space, in a safe container, but all of this can be done by each individual. It is just like when you make an agreement, a legal agreement, right, with somebody. Okay, I'm selling this house for this amount, and this is your property now, free and clear. So same thing, we have to kind of make these agreements with ourselves that I choose to be sovereign on all levels. And you have to go through the levels of the emotional body, mental body, astral body, the causal body, which is the cause of your existence, and the soul level. And when we truly put that into the field, you're actually creating a contract in the field by sending that intention towards that direction. So it's knowing how to direct energy. And the mind directs the energy, but the heart is what sends the energy. And once we understand that whole structure of the physiological body as well as the energy bodies and how they work together and how we can bring them into unison, that's when we're able now to bring these contracts to the front of our visual cortex to perceive them through the third eye in order to fully transform them.
What kind of work are the extraterrestrials doing with humanity?
Okay, so there are different types of extraterrestrials. Majority of them want us to expand in awareness, expand in our consciousness. The reason is because they want to unite, they want to connect, okay? But they can only connect when we're at peace. If we connect with them right now, we will right away look at them as enemies. Because why? We cannot get along with ourselves. Look at what's going on in the world. We're constantly battling because of certain differences. And if they come, we will unite ourselves, but we will battle with them. So the whole thing is like, okay, when is humanity gonna start to be in coherence with themselves? And once that starts to take place in some direction, I think they will start coming through, because the whole purpose is for us to unite with our galactic family. You know, the Ashtar Command, these beings are constantly there working with those that are really ready to open their crown. Look how many people these days are connecting to these different dimensions and extraterrestrials and getting wisdom and getting downloads and channelings. And you have light language and different codes of light codes. They're all coming from different galaxies because they want us to unite. But do we want to unite from peace, or want to unite or connect to them through war and suffering? And this is what they're all leading to, that, especially these constellations like the Sirians, the Palladians, the Arcturians, the Andromedans. I mean, there's so many. There's 88 different constellations. 88. And if we take a look at a piano key, it has 88 key notes, right?
True.
And each sound is a tone to a different constellation.
Have the ETs ever given you a message for humanity?
Yes. I mean, at one point, there were so many messages that still come through and do come through. And the reason is my sole purpose here is to activate the light body of each individual. That is my teachings that I chose to kind of embody and share with the world. So each individual will have their own kind of soul agreement and how they want to work with the ETs. So the ETs that come and assist me, their silhouette or their higher self or their oversoul dimension is to help each individual to come into their Christ consciousness. When each individual comes to their Christ consciousness, they are liberated. They're not free. They are liberated because freedom is still a contract. But liberated, you're contractless. So now you have the free will to do what you desire and choose to. But again, it's coming to the space where you are uniting them. So my whole thing is to work with people and beings to activate the light body.
Do ETs ever try to contact us through our dreams?
Yeah. That's so dream state. When we dream, you go into the astral body. It is when you come out of your body, you can see yourself, because energy has its own language, but our physical mind and physical reality has labels for everything. So we like to create names for different things. So there's different names for everything. But when we go into our dream state, that is the astral body. We're coming out, we're having visions, we're having experiences, we're seeing different dimensions. We see different beings, entities, and it doesn't quite make sense, but everything is happening so many times. And can you imagine when we are dreaming, there's about 50 layers of the astral body, and we're only remembering one or two dreams. And when we go through those dimensions, in those dimensions, each one of them is a fractal of your own physical body, or a fractal of your own consciousness that wants to recalibrate back itself. So the ETs do talk to us, and we also have to know that let each one of them to talk to us through our higher self. And what do I mean through the higher self? I mean, I'm sure your audience know what the higher self is. Mm-hmm. The higher self is what gave birth to time, to this 3D dimension, because there's a lot of beings that will want to talk to you, and they bypass the higher self and they connect to your chakra systems, and they will manipulate you and tell you information and messages, and you're going to think that it's yours. So in reality, we have to learn how to activate that shaft of light that goes from our crown to our higher self. And everything has to communicate to you through your higher self, because the higher self is the higher mind of your 3D reality, which has its own dimension. And then you have your own soul's dimension. So the higher self job is to make sure that you are safe here. So if you are having abductions or difficulties or sleep paralysis, that means there's something that is bypassing your higher self and connecting directly to you. And that's why you feel uncomfortable. If you allow to only connect through your higher self, only the benevolence will connect to you that will allow you to rise up in vibration and expand your consciousness to a higher state, so you can have the free will to communicate with the extraterrestrials that are there to assist you in your evolution.
Well, once contact has been established, what are the important steps for someone to integrate those experiences?
You're talking about contact on the physical or the energetic, astral?
I guess both.
The light body. See, the light body is different because we are connecting to the higher aspect of these beings, which is different. But the physical aspect has its own agenda. So I have my own agenda, you have your own agenda, our family members have their own agenda. But the higher aspect has the agenda of the soul. So that is always connected to the benevolent state. It also plays a big role, our mental blueprint. If our mental blueprint is disturbed and has lots of fear in it, then you will connect to the beings that will always sabotage your energy field. But if you connect your mental blueprint to the positive aspects to be of service, then you will connect to those beings that are helping you to become more of a greater service.
Do you see the ETs becoming more involved with humanity's awakening?
Yeah. I mean, they're here all the time. We've been connecting with them all the time. We just don't remember. People are being taken up into the ships 3 to 4 times a week, if not every day. And people don't remember. All we have to do is ask to remember. There's always guidance. They're always helping us and supporting us because we have to understand that our soul, our oversoul, is existing in this dimension. But our oversoul is also existing in other dimensions as ETs. So let's take, for instance, like the hand, right? This is the oversoul. And this is your life here. This is your past life. This is your other dimensional life. This is your Arcturian life. But they're all connected to the oversoul. So the oversoul says, rise up so you can connect with other aspects of you because the other part, the Arcturian self, is already operating there, and he's sending light to all the aspects that are down in order to raise them all up. As the oversoul rises up and all aspects that are existing in different dimensions rise up, the growth of the oversoul takes place.
Can the oversoul be the same thing as the higher self?
They are different. So the oversoul is the self-realized aspect. Okay, that already has been self-realized. Once you take the place of the self-realization, then you are giving birth to a soul. Okay, from that soul, now it has experiences. It doesn't look as bad or good. I'm trying to explain this in a linear term that the physical mind can understand. So the higher self, the soul projects a higher self. In that higher self, there are contracts, agreements, and purposes of existence. And that higher self is what gives birth to time. So the higher self is the channel from the oversoul. And it governs your life here and guides you so you can come to the self-realization moment. Through that, it also connects you to other aspects of extraterrestrials that it feels that it will be beneficial for you to grow. So if we understand the geometrical structure within the astral plane of how all of this is put together, so we can really step into that space because the other extraterrestrials are operating in that space, especially the higher benevolent ones. They're operating in that space of divine geometrical structure, and they understand how it works. They understand the universe because there are other extraterrestrials that are trying to capture the soul or create the soul. The whole purpose is they're trying to capture that energy that really is not understandable to them because they're vibrating at a lower frequency.
It's interesting that you mentioned those other ETs because some other astral travelers would say that those are negative ones that are just feeding off our energy and forcing us to stay here and reincarnate over and over again.
Yes, but do we want to communicate with that or do we choose? So where our focus goes, where energy flows, right? Mm-hmm. So the astral plane has the free will. That's why it's still part of duality. So we focus on the negative ones, then we're constantly feeding to them. If we focus on the benevolent ones, then this is where we're pulling ourselves toward that direction. The consciousness of the planet, the consciousness of yourself, of each individual. So the negative ones are not negative. They seem negative because their construct of energy is to operate at that level. And you operate at this level. let's say these are operating at this level and you operate here. We are so powerful as humans that we have the ability to go up in vibration and go down. Their consciousness is only programmed to stay at this level. If we go up higher, we are losing them because now they do not exist in this plane. They don't exist at that plane. If they don't exist at that plane, they lost us. So what they're doing everything in their power to hold on to us. When people go through an awakening, they isolate themselves from everyone. They lose their friends, they lose their family members. That's it, everything, right? You're separating. Why? Because you're going up higher and everybody is no longer in that dimension. When you come up to that dimension, you solidify yourself, then you come back down, you're like, oh, I understand why you were holding on to me. It's because you were afraid to lose me. But I no longer choose to operate on that frequency. So let's give a perfect example. Reptilians, right? Everybody goes, whoa, reptilians. No, 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 they're bad. There are good ones and there are bad ones, just like humans. The reptilians that we're talking about, the ones that want to hold on to us, is because we have a what? A cerebellum. What is it called? They call it the reptilian brain. The cerebellum, if we get angry, frustrated, becomes stiff, right? And we have pain in the neck, we have discomfort. That is because that part of the brain is operating on fear. When you have no fear, your neck is fine, you're flowing, you're more flexible, you're flowing. But fear stored in our kidneys. There's an energetic connection between the kidneys and the cerebellum. Now, the cerebellum, if you take a look at it, it's like this. When it becomes frustrated, angry, or afraid, any negative emotion, it inflammates. But if we remove the cerebellum and we see what's behind it, is the pineal gland. The pineal gland will shine its light into the astral body when there's no fear. The pineal gland is the gateway to the other dimensions, or for other dimensions to enter here. So this whole structure of our physical body, when we're afraid, the cerebellum inflammates, the brain inflammates, and we cannot really connect. So the more peaceful we are, the less we are connecting to the negative beings, if we want to call them reptilians. So now we're rising up in vibration. Of course, they don't exist there anymore. That's it. They're not part of your dimension. So they're doing everything in their power to hold on to us. It's like, let me put them back into fear so they don't leave this dimension. So are they bad? No, they're trying to survive from their perspective.
Is there anything that you've seen while traveling in the astral that suggests that what we're in is a simulation?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, this whole thing is a simulation of the mind. That's why if we talk about right now, we talked about fear, you jump into that. It's a simulation. The simulation is created by the mind, but the core of the simulation is in the heart. It is how do you surrender the mind into the heart space? Because the heart space is what leads it and really can change the simulation. It's a matrix. I mean, if we take a look at the Bible, the word matrix, where does it come? It comes actually from the womb. The womb of the mother is called matrix in the Bible. So when we step into this reality, we're walking through the gates of this, the womb into this matrix. So from the darkness became light. So if this is a simulation and we have the free will, that's where our power is to first balance ourselves here. Then we step into the dimension of these extraterrestrials that are at a higher frequency, that are looking at us as equal. Because they're so advanced that they operate at such high frequency that they choose what thoughts to have. Can you imagine we have these technology right now? We have Tesla, right? For instance, no longer you have to drive. It's connected to your mind. You think, okay, take me to the mall. And you get in the car and it's like, you thought about it. You didn't even say it. It's connected to your mind. It's telepathically now operating like the extraterrestrial, right? They operate their spaceships telepathically. It's connected to their field. They're not moving anything. They just think about it and they appear in that dimension. Now we get into a Tesla and you're like, take me to the mall. And all of a sudden your mind goes, did I turn off the stove in the house? Did I do that? And all of a sudden the car turns around and starts driving back home because it's connected to your thought process. So we have to elevate ourselves to that high vibration where we are free from the belief systems and we are in control of this matrix, of this simulation. We as a society only now coming to understand positive thinking. Positive thinking is only scratching the surface. Then we have to start to understand the logical thinking of the ether, of Akash. That's a completely different thought process than what we know here. In here, we know, okay, I need a blueprint to build a house. You start with a foundation, you build the walls, you build the roof, you go into certain sequence. But in the astral plane, you can start with the roof and finish with the floor last. Because there is no loss like that. Because in the astral plane, you're thinking of something. You're bringing that dimension to yourself right away. It's hopping, jumping all the time. It's never still. And your mind is what constantly changes this dimension. So if we don't have stillness in our mind and we cannot control our thoughts and we lay down in bed at night and we start thinking of the past or the future, what I'm going to do, what I could have said, you're not in the present moment. The extraterrestrials are powerful because they control their simulation.
Do you think that the extraterrestrials realize that we are also powerful, but we just forgot?
That's what we're doing. And this is exactly why they're helping us to remember who we truly are, because we simulated out of them their DNA. 12 different species, 12 different constellations. Jesus had 12 apostles. We have 12 nerves, major nerves in the brain. 12 in each direction. 12 feminine, 12 masculine. Total of 24 chromosomes in our body. When that goes on the line, that's when we start to become these multidimensional beings. So now we're becoming aware of ourselves. We just stepped into that era where now we're becoming in control of our body, of our energy fields. We're starting to learn this. It's being taught in schools. It's everywhere. We cannot escape it. And the whole society and the whole system that we know that was built on this lower frequencies is collapsing. It's trying to hold on to it as much as it can. I mean, Jeff, your channel here is transforming so many people. Nobody wants to watch CNN, and all the people that watch your stuff do not watch CNN because you are the future who's bringing these higher dimensions into this reality. So what divine beings are channeling through you and guiding you here? Do you see that? It's a powerful, benevolent energy. I would call them the Elohimic consciousness as they're coming through right now. Why the Elohimic consciousness? Because they're so benevolent. They don't have the understanding of war, of mind, of possession, of destruction, of separation. They live in such benevolence that they understand that everything is created for a purpose to guide us to the light. Even the darkness works for the light. And this is what we're coming to as a society, I think.
What other transformative truths did the ET share with you?
For me was I wanted to see how they live. So I started to venture out into their planets, into their dimensions, and seeing so many different beautiful worlds and how they operate. I mean, there was one world that for me, when my kids were growing up, for me was like, it was just heart touching. They were growing up, the partners would know naturally that they would become partners for a certain period of time, or maybe a lifetime, or maybe for the time of their duration until they would have a certain experience. These partners would come naturally. That's an agreement on a soul level. That's how conscious they were. And they would say, okay, we would create now a child. They would create a child. The child would come into birth, into this reality, right? they would not have birth. Maybe it would just originate. And then that child would be able to say, okay, I had a good experience by you being my mom and dad. I want to change my mom and dad. I'm going to go with them and I'm going to experience them as my mom and dad. And the parents would be like, yeah, sure, no problem. There was no possession of ownership. They would go and experience and live with that family, and they would treat them like their own child. They would have that experience, then they would move on to the next one. And they would have these interchange experiences with partners, even without an attachment. So we see a huge divorce rate taking place. It is because we're learning how to become non attached and allow the soul to guide us. But we as humans have such a strong perception that this is mine, my partner, my life, and there's no divine separation. It's like we have to end it in war, like. So we're learning these things as well from them, how to become more benevolent in that aspect of how more flowing. The other parts that I've seen also in other dimensions where humans are actually the animals. So I've experienced that as well. I've seen civilizations that do not evolve. They're just like stuck in a certain loop. And that's it. They just stay there for a reason because that's their journey. That's it. I've seen species that grow without technology, and their technology is their energy body. That to me was very important because they were able to create everything from their energy body. And why is it called energy body? Because it's part of our body. That's why it's called energy body. We just don't see it. So we're not fully stepping into our field, fully like who we truly are. And that's what we're stepping into now. And those experiences shifted my belief system on my kids because a lot of times as parents, we hold on to our kids and we want to help them, but holding on to them is not helping them. We have to learn how to let go. So that part experience allowed me to kind of, okay, say, my kids have the right to fall and get up and learn from that on their own without me constantly being around them. And so what we did, we do energetic bubbles around them. So these beings showed me that I've created a bubble around my kids to protect them. But in reality, they're like, release this. And when I started to release that, my kid's soul came in as their true lesson and opened up their crown to connect to these dimensions on their own. There was one time I put my daughter through hypnosis, and she went to a planet where half of the planet was water, the other half was dry land. And she's like, nobody's here. I was like, well, let's go into the water. We go into the water, and over there, she sees a family, and they live underwater. And I was like, how'd they live? She's like, they're breathing there. They can breathe. I was like, well, what do you see? She's like, okay, they have some sort of gills right on top of their nose and the back of their ears. I was like, okay, let's go talk to them. She starts talking to them and they're telling her, leave. What are you doing here? And she's like, why? They're like, we don't want humans here. That's why we went to live underwater. And I was like, okay, let's stay there. Let's see what's going on, what takes place there. As she went deeper into that space, she noticed that these beings were all females. They went underwater because they didn't want to participate in the space of war. So they adapted themselves into that space. As she spoke to them to convince them to come to the surface, that it's okay to come to the surface with her, that it's not going to be destructive. And she did in that space. So it was very beautiful to kind of go through these kind of experiences and see how was that helpful for her in this dimension. It showed her that she can be out in the world herself and not hide in her own bubble.
Have the ETs ever showed you what's coming in the near future and how to prepare for it?
All right, so there was a few timelines that I was shown. The timeline was 34, 34, no, 43, 44. So between 2034 to 2044 is when they're anticipating to have contact. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen based on the trajectory of the timeline and what we do as a collective, what we choose to experience. We as humans gave our powers away to government. So what the government does is what our collective thought process does. So right now, we as humans are changing our thought process in order to change the government. And that's when it's going to start to open up. They need us to step into the balance of 50% up to 51% into harmony within ourselves. Once that takes place, now we will start open up the gateway to other dimensions, because what we know of solar system is really not quite the way it operates. So the benevolent ones are saying patience is needed and transformation is needed. So there is rays of light that is coming through this planet right now, through our sun. The solar flares is codes that are coming in through other planetary systems, which some extraterrestrials have the power to manipulate. And these solar flares that are entering our planet, they are transforming our belief system through our solar plex. Because the solar plex holds the ego mind belief system and the bridge between the lower and the higher realms. So they're communicating and sending key codes through that space right now in order for us to elevate to a higher dimension, to take the planet to a higher dimension. When we start to operate to a higher dimension, that's why a lot of people are having lots of astral dreams, transformations, because Egypt was built and all the pyramids were built based on operations from the astral plane. So once we start to operate in that higher dimension, this is when we will open the gateway to the extraterrestrials. The veil will be lifted. Now, if we do it now, which they're not going to allow it because they are still governing it. There are people that are working with this. There are governments that are aware of this. It's been in a process for a long time. But how do we free ourselves as humans from that? And this is where we have to come in to really work on ourselves deeper in order to open that veil to the astral plane, to the higher dimension, from when we're truly ready to communicate with them without being afraid. Because if we're afraid of them, then what do? All wars is because of fear.
I was checking out your YouTube channel, and some of your most popular videos are meditation. Are you teaching meditations or just guiding them?
So I've been doing for the past 10 years free meditations every Tuesday. And the meditations are guided by the higher celestial wisdom. It is guided because it's helping people to go beyond fear and elevate their personality and their energy fields so they can connect with their higher self more effortless and integrate that aspect. The meditations are very powerful. The more you listen to the meditations, the more expanded your consciousness becomes, because through the meditative state, we can enter into the astral plane. Through that state, we are opening up and expanding our consciousness. And meditations, I myself meditated for many, many hours, 14 to 16 hours a day for about 5 years like this, until I got the guidance that I need to start sharing this. And I was like, I don't know how to share this. I would just guide myself into these deep meditations. So then I started to kind of teach this and share this. I do have courses and workshops, pilgrimages, where I take people through sacred sites. In the courses where I take people through certain dimensional and release these fear blocks and bring aspects back to them, and an understanding of the astral body, the emotional body, the mental body, the causal body, how to really regenerate and become the full Adamic human that we're meant to be, meaning the perfect atom. And if we can come to that space and you're really solidified and you're balanced, the divine and benevolent beings will communicate through you because they want you to share that light. They want you to become the effect. So this is my whole work, is to bring people into that space.
What's your website so people can find out more about what you're up to?
Sure. It's igorgalibov.com, or they can go to alignmentoflight.com. Same thing on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook and other platforms.
If people want to ask you questions, is it best to do it in the form of comments on your videos, or is there a contact form?
On my website, when they register, they get a link to the Zoom. Every Tuesday, I answer people's questions and do a guided meditation where I can bring people to their answers.
All right.
So I've been dedicating that. That's completely free for over 10 years now. So yeah, if they want to join, well, they're welcome, more than welcome to. And I really enjoy this because it's like being of service, completely opening up my channel, and I'm basically in a space where I channel this information for the people.
Are you actually channeling ETs or from your higher self?
I used to channel. I stopped doing channeling. I decided to channel my own oversoul self, the wisdom of my own Christed self, because that is the wisdom that we all want to come into. And in that space, we'll get the truth, the true essence, the clarity that is needed for each individual. So that's what I teach people, is how to become their own Christed channel.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
The illusion is not outside. Everything outside, I'm sorry, I'm going to change it. Everything outside of you is an illusion. What's inside of you is the truth, that Christ itself wants to speak through you. Listen to that inner guidance. Be in that space of the heart. Don't allow anything or anyone to deviate you, because the truth will emanate from within you.
Igor, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. Really love being here.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.